Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we, plunge right into the heart of complex stories, bringing you the essential insights. Today we're dialing our time machine way back to a really pivotal moment, one that fundamentally reshaped a nation, October 12th, 1999. Just try and picture the scene. Pakistan, a country that our sources describe as really reeling from growing political instability and national uncertainty. The air was thick with tension, economic stagnation was, palpable. Governance felt fragmented. Public confidence was just eroding. It was a moment of deep national apprehension. And then amidst all this swirling uncertainty, a figure steps forward. Not, our sources emphasize, from a place of personal ambition, but with this explicit stated aim to rescue Pakistan from chaos. The figure, of course, was General Pervez Musharraf. So our mission today is to embark on a real deep dive into Musharraf's transformative era, looking at roughly 1999 to 2008. We're going to explore how he genuinely sought to find a new direction for Pakistan. We'll unpack his bold promise of stability, accountability, and a vision for a modern, progressive Pakistan. We'll be looking closely at two big themes that really defined his tenure. First, this concept of enlightened moderation, which became, a hallmark of his approach, both to national identity and foreign policy. And second, the profound digital revolution that Pakistan experienced under his leadership, something that fundamentally altered daily life and economic prospects for so many. So what does it really mean for a nation to find a renewed sense of order or purpose amidst such deep uncertainty? And maybe more pointedly, how can a single leader, arriving through a military intervention, shape such a transformative era? That's precisely what we're here to unravel for you today.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating right from the very beginning is how that narrative, the story around Musharraf's entry into power, was so carefully constructed. Our sources make it abundantly clear that the atmosphere in Pakistan just before October 12th, 1999 was one of significant unrest. There was this perceived leadership vacuum. We're talking about a period marked by political infighting, frequent changes in government, serious allegations of corruption, and an economy really struggling under debt and, dwindling foreign investment. This isn't just a casual observation, It reflects a really deep-seated fear within the country that the state itself was adrift. And that creates fertile ground for, a strong intervention. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it kind of speaks to a recurring pattern, doesn't it, in nations grappling with, say, nascent or struggling democratic institutions, where the military can sometimes step in, presenting itself as perhaps the only stable force capable of restoring order. So that claim, the Musharraf assumed command not for ambition, but to rescue Pakistan from chaos, it's a deliberate and crucial framing. It attempts to position his actions as a selfless act, an act of national service, an imperative, really, to prevent further state disintegration rather than just a power grab. This language is incredibly important because it's designed quite deliberately to garner public acceptance and differentiate his takeover from, previous military coups. It implies necessity, right? Like a last resort to prevent what was being painted as an imminent collapse. The paradox here is quite striking. You have a military leader, often seen as, the antithesis to democratic ideals, justifying his takeover as essential for the nation's very survival and future stability.
That is a critical point, this idea of rescue versus seizure. And that framing, it leads directly into his very public vision statement almost immediately. He wasn't just taking over, he was articulating a clear path forward. Our sources highlight his initial promise: stability, accountability, and a vision for a modern, progressive Pakistan. In that context, what specific failings, societal or governmental, do you think those promises were really designed to address?
Well, let's break down those three pillars. Stability, that directly addressed the chaos, the profound uncertainty that had plagued the country for years. It offered a promise, an end to the constant political turmoil, a restoration of law and order, and importantly, a more predictable environment for daily life and for business. People were just tired of the uncertainty.
Understandable.
And Musharraf offered, a firm hand. Then, accountability. That was aimed squarely at the widespread corruption and the perceived lack of governance that had really eroded public trust in political institutions and leadership. There was a palpable public demand, for those in power to be held responsible for mismanagement, for illicit gains. And this promise, it resonated strongly with a disillusioned populace. Finally, that vision for a modern, progressive Pakistan, that was the forward-looking bit, an aspiration. It sought to lift the nation out of its current malaise and towards something better. It implied economic advancement, social development, a more positive global image. It was an ambitious call for Pakistan to move beyond its immediate struggles and really define itself as a forward-thinking nation.
And he didn't stop there. He then declared the dawn of a new era, an era of enlightened moderation. What did that specific phrase, enlightened moderation, truly signify in the Pakistani context, especially given all those diverse internal and external pressures the nation faced back then? This wasn't just philosophy, was it?
No, not at all. It was a profound attempt, really, to redefine Pakistan's national identity on the world stage and also to offer a guiding principle for internal policy. Enlightened moderation represented a careful balance, you could say, a path that tried to avoid extremes on both sides. On one hand, it pushed back against religious fundamentalism and extremism, advocating for a more tolerant, perhaps pluralistic interpretation of Islam. On the other hand, it wasn't a call for, unchecked westernization or abandoning cultural values. It aimed for a more thoughtful, measured approach to governance and societal development, one that tried to fuse modernism with traditional values.
A balancing act.
Definitely. In a nation grappling with so many pressures, sectarian tensions, geopolitical expectations, this concept was meant to position Pakistan as a kind of bridge between the Islamic world and the West. And it translated into tangible policy discussions, things like curriculum reform debates aimed at fostering critical thinking and religious tolerance, promoting cultural exchanges, emphasizing Pakistan's rich, diverse heritage. But it also sparked internal resistance from traditionalists who saw it as, diluting Islamic identity, and from secularists who felt it didn't go far enough in promoting liberal values. So it was a complex, often contested vision, but it became a defining characteristic of his era, an attempt to provide a coherent ideological framework for the nation's direction.
Okay, so with this bold vision laid out, a strong ideological framework in place, how did Musharraf then immediately start translating these promises into, actionable plans? Because grand visions are one thing, execution is quite another.
Right, and this raises that important question. How does a leader, particularly one coming to power through non-democratic means, immediately build credibility? How do you demonstrate commitment to these grand promises? The answer, as our sources suggest, lay in a very concrete plan. Musharraf didn't just talk about a new era. He immediately laid out his 7-point agenda. This was the operational blueprint. His detailed response to the chaos he aimed to fix. It was meant to be a tangible manifestation of his vision, signaling this was a serious effort to reform and restructure the state.
A roadmap, basically.
Exactly. The agenda was comprehensive, covering everything from national confidence to good governance, law and order, justice, effective provincial coordination, and reviving the economy. While we'll dive deep into 4 key areas, it's worth remembering the breadth of that initial vision. The publicly stated goals within this agenda were foundational. First, rebuilding national confidence. Why is this so crucial? Because when a nation goes through chaos and uncertainty, trust just evaporates. Trust in institutions, leaders, even its own future. Rebuilding confidence is often the very first and maybe the hardest step towards national healing and moving forward. A government might try to achieve this through consistent, transparent actions, visible improvements in daily life, maybe better law and order, cleaner streets, and a strong, unified message of hope and progress. Usually pushed through state media and public speeches, it's an intangible asset, confidence, but absolutely vital for national cohesion and morale.
I can certainly see that. If people don't believe, no policy, however good, is likely to stick, right? So rebuilding confidence makes perfect sense as step 1. The second core goal was strengthening institutions. What did that typically mean in this specific context? Which institutions were particularly targeted for reform?
Strengthening institutions is broad, but critical. And in Pakistan, then, it was multifaceted. In a nation with prolonged instability, institutions like the judiciary, the civil bureaucracy, law enforcement, even economic regulatory bodies, they often get weakened, either through corruption, inefficiency, or political interference. Strengthening them involved a concerted effort at systemic reform. For the judiciary, it meant measures to speed up justice, reduce backlogs, enhance its perceived independence from the executive branch, though, as you know, this became a major point of contention later on. Administrative reforms aimed at improving civil service efficiency. Think merit-based appointments, training, cutting bureaucratic red tape. Law enforcement also saw attempts at modernization, professionalization, trying to enhance public safety and combat crime more effectively. Ultimately, these are the pillars of a stable state. If they're crumbling, the whole thing is at risk. What's particularly insightful here, I think, is the paradox. A military leader, often seen as bypassing democratic institutions, actively prioritizing their strengthening. It suggests a strategic understanding, perhaps, that even authoritarian rule benefits from the perception of functional, albeit controlled, state structures to maintain legitimacy and long-term stability.
That sounds like a monumental task in itself. Then third, he aimed to revive the economy. What were the likely economic challenges Pakistan faced at that time? What necessitated such a focused effort, and what were the typical strategies used?
Well, historically, countries in political turmoil often suffer economically. For Pakistan, this meant significant national debt, low foreign investment, high inflation, persistent unemployment, that kind of picture. There was also the issue of capital flight. That's when significant amounts of money just flow out of a country rapidly, usually because people lack confidence in the economic or political future. The sources imply a period of profound economic malaise that Musharraf inherited.
So how do you tackle that?
Typical strategies involve tackling these issues head-on. Fiscal discipline, for one. That means controlling government spending, increasing revenue through tax reforms to cut budget deficits. Monetary policies were implemented to stabilize the currency, control inflation, often working closely with the state bank. A major focus was attracting foreign direct investment, FDI, creating a more investor-friendly environment, liberalizing markets, offering incentives. Privatization of state-owned enterprises was also pursued to improve efficiency and generate revenue. Moreover, his government really made efforts to improve economic management by bringing in technocrats, highly skilled, non-political experts, people who could make data-driven decisions, often shielded from immediate political pressures.
Giving it a sense of professionalism.
Exactly. It lent a perception of professionalism and continuity to economic policy. It was all about creating an environment where businesses could thrive, people could find work, which then feeds back into national confidence and stability. And finally, that fourth stated goal, bringing accountability. This always resonates deeply with a public fed up with instability and corruption. When there's perceived mismanagement or people getting rich illicitly, faith in the system just plummets. Accountability in practice could take many forms. Anti-corruption drives, setting up or strengthening anti-corruption bodies, auditing government departments, even prosecuting officials involved in wrongdoing. It also included measures for greater transparency in public dealings, government contracts. It's about showing that nobody, regardless of position, is above the law, that those in power are responsible for their actions. This directly addressed the grievances of a public that might have felt neglected or exploited by previous regimes, aiming to restore a sense of fairness and justice.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Our sources make this compelling distinction, emphasizing this was not dictatorship, it was direction. That's a powerful choice of words, clearly designed to frame his rule as purposeful, necessary, rather than just authoritarian. How did this subtle yet significant difference in terminology try to define the nature of his rule, and what was its immediate impact?
Oh, this is classic political messaging, isn't it? Designed to shape perception, both at home and internationally. A dictatorship implies absolute, often oppressive, rule by one person, usually achieved by force, maintained by suppressing dissent. Direction, on the other hand, suggests a guiding hand, a sense of purpose, a necessary steer for a nation that's lost its way. By using direction, Musharraf sought to align his government with the idea of responsible, guiding leadership, providing a much-needed course correction for a drifting nation. It aims to legitimize his authority by presenting it as a solution to a problem, not the problem itself. It frames his actions as a kind of benevolent necessity.
Initially.
Well, initially, it seemed to have the desired effect. The source states that, for the first time in years, Pakistan felt a renewed sense of order and purpose. This suggests that the seven-point agenda, combined with this narrative of direction, translated into practical changes or initial policy shifts that people felt. We saw visible efforts to improve law and order, a crackdown on crime, relatively prompt decision-making in government, and those early economic measures offered a glimmer of hope for improvement. When a country has experienced prolonged instability, any perceptible improvement in daily life, or just a clearer national direction, can lead to a collective sigh of relief. A renewed sense of optimism, even under a military-led government. This initial period was marked by a sense of disciplined progress, which many citizens, weary of political squabbling, likely found quite reassuring.
Okay, so we have domestic reform starting, a clear agenda being rolled out, and a nation that, at least at first, feels a renewed sense of purpose. But then, just 2 years into his rule, a truly cataclysmic global event occurs. One that would force Pakistan into making monumental strategic choices, dramatically altering its geopolitical position. We're talking, of course, about September 11th, 2001.
Indeed. September 11th didn't just change the U.S. or the West. It profoundly impacted global geopolitics. And for Pakistan, it was a moment of immense pressure, of hard choices, as the source puts it. Pakistan, because of its geography right next to Afghanistan and its historical ties to various groups in the region, suddenly found itself thrust onto the absolute front line of a new global conflict, the War on Terror. The world, led by the U.S., was essentially demanding countries pick a side. Neutrality wasn't really on the table. This sudden shift presented Musharraf with an immediate, almost existential dilemma.
A fork in the road with huge consequences either way.
Absolutely. Musharraf's decision to align Pakistan with the international coalition against terror was a strategic pivot of immense consequence. It was fraught with risks, both internal and external. Let's break down the rationale as our source presents it. First, and critically, was protecting Pakistan from sanctions. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, any nation seen as harboring or supporting terrorist elements faced severe international condemnation and the very real threat of crippling economic, military, diplomatic sanctions. Pakistan, already a developing nation, facing economic challenges burdened by past sanctions, simply could not afford to be isolated like that. Non-cooperation could have plunged it into an even deeper crisis. Economic collapse, international pariah status, those were real possibilities.
So avoiding economic collapse and international isolation was a huge driver. And then, tied to that, securing aid became absolutely critical. It really changed the flow of global resources towards Pakistan, didn't it?
Precisely. International aid, both financial and military, became a significant component of this alignment. For a country with limited resources and huge development needs, that influx of aid could be a lifeline. This aid supported everything from infrastructure projects, social programs, to direct budget support. And significantly, it strengthened Pakistan's military capabilities, which were crucial given its new frontline role. This aid was vital not just for short-term survival, but for long-term development and stability. Furthermore, a core goal was ensuring the country's survival in a hostile world. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, the global landscape became incredibly charged, hostile even. For a country in Pakistan's complex position bordering Afghanistan, with its own internal extremist groups, a fraught relationship with India's survival meant navigating intense scrutiny, potential repercussions from the international community, and the very real threat of destabilization from extremists within and across its borders. It was about preventing Pakistan from becoming a target itself or being engulfed in the fallout of this new global conflict.
So Musharraf frames this not as giving in to external pressure, but as calculated self-preservation, a strategic move for national interests. The source emphasizes, it was not surrender, it was strategy. Another powerful piece of rhetoric, clearly designed to shape opinion at home and abroad. How did he articulate this alignment as a strategic move, safeguarding national interests rather than just bowing to pressure? Especially when some within Pakistan might have felt it was a surrender.
Oh, that framing of strategy, not surrender, was absolutely vital, especially for domestic consumption, for maintaining national pride, given the strong anti-American sentiment in some parts of Pakistani society. Musharraf presented this decision as a carefully calculated move to protect Pakistan's core interests in a dangerous new global reality. He was essentially telling the nation, look, we are acting intelligently, pragmatically to protect what is ours. We're not abandoning our principles. This narrative was crucial for justifying the pivot to a public that might have been wary of aligning with Western powers, especially given Pakistan's history and its support for the Taliban in Afghanistan before 9/11. He emphasized that Pakistan was choosing its own path, albeit one that now intersected with international objectives.
And protecting core assets was key to that narrative.
Exactly. Key to that protection was the ability to safeguard Pakistan's nuclear program and defend sovereignty. These are two absolutely non-negotiable aspects of Pakistan's national pride and security. In a post-9/11 world, there was heightened international concern about nuclear proliferation, especially in unstable regions. By aligning with the global coalition, demonstrating commitment to counterterrorism, Pakistan could showcase its responsibility as a nuclear power, thereby deflecting potential international pressure, scrutiny, or even demands related to its nuclear arsenal. Similarly, by actively participating in the— Exactly right. This alignment opened doors for significant diplomatic engagement. It transformed Pakistan's standing from a state often subject to sanctions, international isolation, into a key partner in the global fight against terrorism. This new status brought enhanced diplomatic leverage, increased engagement with major global powers, the U.S., European nations. It meant a seat at important international tables, a greater voice in regional and global security discussions. It also created opportunities for new economic partnerships. International goodwill translated into increased trade, foreign investment, development assistance beyond just direct security aid. Pakistan began to benefit from debt relief initiatives, improved access to international financial markets.
A real repositioning.
A profound repositioning on the global stage. Pakistan could now be seen as a crucial ally, potentially altering international perceptions. Moving away from just being seen as struggling with internal issues to playing a vital frontline role in global security. This decision fundamentally reshaped Pakistan's foreign relations, its role in counterterrorism, its relationship with the West for decades. The ripples are still felt today in its geopolitical strategies, its economic links. It truly was a moment where crisis was strategically leveraged for national interest.
It's incredible to think how quickly the world can change and how a nation can pivot so dramatically under pressure. But even as Pakistan was navigating these incredibly complex global security challenges, Musharraf also turned his attention inward, orchestrating a different kind of revolution, one that would profoundly transform daily life for millions: the digital and telecom revolution.
Yes, this is truly a remarkable chapter of his era, often overshadowed by the geopolitical drama, but equally, if not more, impactful on the lives of ordinary Pakistanis. While the world was focused on those geopolitical shifts, Musharraf's government was laying the groundwork for what our sources call a digital revolution, bringing dramatic, rapid changes to Pakistan's technological landscape. It was a conscious effort, it seems, to propel Pakistan into the information age, recognizing the power of connectivity for development, for economic growth.
And the numbers are just staggering.
They really are astonishing. They speak volumes about the scale of this change. Mobile phone connections, for instance, skyrocketed from a mere 300,000 to over 80 million in less than a decade. This isn't just growth, it's an explosion of connectivity.
How did they even achieve that?
Well, the government initiated significant policy changes, primarily liberalizing the telecom sector. This meant opening up the market to private operators, both domestic and international, issuing new mobile licenses, creating a favorable regulatory environment that encouraged competition and investment. Infrastructure development was massive. The rapid rollout of mobile networks, often in challenging remote areas, funded by both local and foreign capital. And the market changes included making mobile phones and services far more affordable, more accessible, allowing a wide demographic, even in rural areas, to join this revolution.
That's an almost unimaginable leap in a relatively short time. It suggests a huge impact on ordinary citizens. What was the immediate effect on daily life? I mean, how did this change communication, commerce, social interaction?
The impact was truly transformative. It touched almost every aspect of daily life. Suddenly, people who were previously isolated by distance or lack of infrastructure could connect instantly. Family, friends, irrespective of geographical barriers. For commerce, it was revolutionary. Farmers could check real-time market prices. Small business owners could reach customers more easily. New forms of digital entrepreneurship, like mobile-based services, started popping up. Think about the economic empowerment of, say, a street vendor now able to connect with suppliers or customers with just a simple phone call.
Changes everything.
It really does. Social interaction shifted dramatically, too, fostering a more connected society, breaking down traditional barriers. It played a significant role in disseminating information news, emergency alerts, social awareness campaigns. This widespread access empowered individuals with a tool that was previously out of reach for the vast majority. It bridged urban-rural divides in unprecedented ways, profoundly altering social dynamics. And hand-in-hand with mobile connectivity was the spread of internet access. Our sources note that internet access spread to every corner of the country. This implies that significant barriers, high cost, limited infrastructure, especially in rural areas, restrictive policies were systematically identified and tackled. Governments typically address these by investing in national broadband infrastructure, promoting fierce competition among internet service providers to drive down costs, maybe subsidizing access for underserved communities. The significance of widespread internet access just cannot be overstated. It's an equalizer, providing access to an unprecedented amount of information, educational resources for students, professionals, new economic opportunities. It allowed individuals and businesses, even small ones, to participate in the global digital economy, opening up new avenues for learning, for earning.
And this wasn't just about personal communication or getting information. It had profound economic ripple effects, didn't it? Our sources specifically mention IT exports grew and call centers flourished. This indicates a shift in the very structure of the economy.
Absolutely. The growth in IT exports indicates a significant strategic shift towards a knowledge economy, where Pakistani professionals, companies, were able to offer software development, IT services, other digital solutions to international markets. This diversification away from traditional industries like agriculture or textiles, that's a hallmark of a maturing, modernizing economy. The government actively supported this, setting up IT parks, offering incentives for tech startups, promoting IT education.
And the call centers.
Simultaneously, the flourishing of call centers created a huge number of jobs, especially for young, educated, English-speaking individuals. These jobs provided vital entry points into the formal economy, offering better wages, career prospects than many traditional sectors, contributing to a burgeoning service economy. What's particularly noteworthy, I think, is the emergence of a new digital middle class. This isn't just an economic statistic. It signifies profound social mobility, economic upliftment through technology. As more people gained access to these higher-paying jobs in IT and telecom, they moved into the middle class, contributing to a more robust consumer market, fostering further economic growth. This demographic shift fundamentally altered the country's social fabric, creating new aspirations and significantly a new constituency that would later demand greater transparency, democratic participation, often using the very tools of connectivity Musharraf introduced.
That sounds like a complete overhaul, not just a technical upgrade. The sources are clear. This was not just connectivity, it was transformation. How did technology fundamentally alter Pakistan's economic structure, social fabric, and even its global perception?
It's a critical distinction, yeah. Transformation implies a fundamental change that permeated multiple layers of society. Economically, it diversified Pakistan's revenue streams, reduced reliance on agriculture or remittances, opened up new avenues for growth in services, technology, made the economy arguably more resilient to traditional shocks. Socially, it democratized access to information and communication, empowering citizens, fostering new forms of social interaction, and even inadvertently laying groundwork for new avenues of social and political activism, as communities could organize and share information much more rapidly.
And globally.
Globally, these advancements position Pakistan as an emerging hub of the information age. This perception shift was crucial. Instead of being solely viewed through the lens of security challenges or political instability, Pakistan started being recognized for its potential in the tech sector, attracting investment, talent. It showcased a dynamic, forward-looking aspect of the country that challenged existing stereotypes. And the enduring legacy of this digital infrastructure continues to shape Pakistan's development today. It provides the backbone for e-commerce, digital payments, remote work, online education, all essential for sustained growth and innovation in the 21st century. It created a foundation that future governments, entrepreneurs could build upon, fostering a culture of technological adoption and innovation that might not have existed otherwise.
So we've seen this incredible push for digital empowerment, connecting people, transforming the economy. But the drive for empowerment didn't stop at connectivity. Musharraf also initiated a fundamental restructuring of governance, aiming to bring power closer to the people through his Devolution of Power plan.
Yes, this initiative was bold, ambitious, an attempt to address one of those perennial challenges in many developing nations, overly centralized governance. The Devolution of Power plan was Musharraf's strategy to decentralize authority, empower local communities, essentially bringing government decision-making closer to the citizens it serves. The core mechanism was straightforward, yet profound. Local governments in villages, towns, and cities received funds and authority directly from the federal level, bypassing provincial bureaucracies to a large extent.
What problems was that designed to solve?
Well, think about the traditional challenges of centralized governance. Often, decisions are made in the capital city, far removed from the actual needs and realities on the ground. This leads to bureaucratic bottlenecks, slow project implementation, a lack of responsiveness to specific local issues, and often a sense of alienation among citizens from their government. Funds allocated from the center might get delayed, diluted, even misdirected before reaching the intended people. By directly allocating funds and authority, the plan aimed to cut through that red tape, empowering local decision-making bodies to address their community's specific needs more effectively. This fosters a stronger sense of local ownership over development initiatives. Communities can see the direct impact of their local government's actions in sanitation, local roads, schools.
And this is where that powerful phrase, "it was democracy at the grassroots giving ordinary citizens a voice in governance," comes in. How does this kind of decentralization truly enhance participation? How does it bring governance closer?
Democracy at the grassroots is a powerful concept because it directly addresses that feeling of disempowerment many citizens experience when government seems distant, unresponsive. When local bodies have real power and resources, citizens can engage directly with officials who are physically present in their communities and who are more directly accountable to them. This meant introducing local body elections, allowing citizens to elect representatives who would directly manage local affairs. People could potentially participate in local council meetings, influence decisions on neighborhood projects, hold local representatives responsible for issues like waste management, primary health care, school maintenance.
Making it more tangible.
Exactly. It significantly enhances participation by making governance more tangible, accessible, thereby increasing the likelihood that local needs are understood and addressed with tailored solutions rather than blanket policies from a distant capital. It also serves as a crucial training ground for future leaders, exposing a broader segment of the population to the mechanics of governance, fostering a sense of civic responsibility and empowerment that can then ripple upwards into national politics.
That's a compelling argument for bottom-up democracy. So the source argues this plan was not weakening democracy, but strengthening it from the ground up. How can empowering local bodies be seen as foundational for a robust democratic system, rather than a challenge to national institutions, especially coming from a military-led government?
That's a crucial distinction, and it reflects the argument that a healthy democracy isn't just about national elections and parliamentary debates. It's about active citizen participation and effective governance at every level. By creating empowered, accountable local institutions, you are arguably building a foundational element of a robust democratic system. If local institutions are strong, responsive, accountable, they cultivate democratic habits among the populace. They teach the value of voting, participation, give people a tangible stake in governance. This, in turn, can create a more informed, engaged citizenry that demands accountability from national institutions as well.
So strengthening the base.
Exactly. The idea was that rather than challenging national democratic institutions, strong local governance provides a resilient base upon which national democratic institutions can thrive. Like strengthening the roots of a tree, a strong root system supports a healthier, more resilient tree that can weather political storms. However, the complex legacy of introducing such democratic structures within an authoritarian framework is always worth considering. Does it genuinely foster democracy, or does it also serve to legitimize the existing power structure by offering a controlled form of participation? That remains a nuanced point of debate for many observers of the era.
It made sense that strengthening local governance could ultimately bolster national democracy by giving people a real stake. Of course, implementing such a vast decentralization program in a diverse country like Pakistan must have come with its own set of challenges, even with the best intentions.
Oh, absolutely. The inherent challenges would have been numerous, complex. These could include resistance from entrenched central and provincial bureaucracies who saw their power, their resources being diminished. Difficulties in building capacity at the local level requiring extensive training for newly empowered local officials and staff. The potential for local elite capture of funds and power, where existing influential families might dominate local councils. And just the sheer complexity of managing such a significant shift in power dynamics across a vast, diverse nation with varying levels of literacy and administrative capabilities. While our sources focus on the strategic intent and stated benefits, any such monumental reform in a developing country would inevitably face formidable implementation hurdles. Nonetheless, the stated aim and initial impact suggest a significant effort to create a more participatory, responsive governance structure. A long-term investment, perhaps, in bottom-up democracy.
So, Musharraf's era was marked by these huge reforms: global realignment, digital transformation, local empowerment. But as with any leadership, especially one that began with a military takeover, these significant reforms weren't without critics, without challenges. The later years of his rule were marked by intense political struggles and opposition.
That's absolutely right. The initial period of perceived order and purpose inevitably gave way to increased internal pressures, a demand for a return to full civilian democracy. The later years of Musharraf's rule were indeed characterized by intensifying opposition, most notably exemplified by the lawyers' movement. This wasn't just a political skirmish. It was a powerful nationwide expression of civil society opposition, fundamentally driven by issues of judicial independence and a rule of law. The movement gained unprecedented momentum after Musharraf suspended the Chief Justice of Pakistan, Iftikhar Muhammad Chaudhry, in March 2007.
A pivotal moment.
A huge moment. This act was widely seen as unconstitutional, an attempt to control the judiciary. It sparked outrage among legal communities, the public, across the country. Lawyers, joined by political activists, civil society groups, media, took to the streets in mass protests, demanding the restoration of the Chief Justice and, more broadly, an end to military rule, the restoration of democratic principles. It highlighted deep concerns about the separation of powers, about accountability within the state. It galvanized public opinion against the military government and demonstrated the growing assertiveness of civil society. The lawyers' movement became a symbol of resistance, drawing international attention and placing immense pressure on Musharraf's regime.
Beyond the lawyers' movement, I imagine broader political opposition naturally intensifies over time as well, especially when a regime begins with a military takeover. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. While the initial justification for a military takeover might be rescue from chaos, that mandate eventually wears thin. Over time, there's an inherent tension between military rule and the popular demand for democratic process, civilian rule, restoring fundamental rights. Political parties, many of which had been dormant, exiled, or suppressed during the initial phases, tend to re-emerge, grow more vocal. Public discourse becomes more critical as the initial sense of crisis subsides and expectations for democratic governance rise. The return of prominent political figures like Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif from exile further fueled this opposition, creating a formidable political challenge for Musharraf. This is a common trajectory for such governments, where the initial calm often gives way to a resurgence of democratic aspirations.
Despite these significant internal challenges, widespread public dissent, intense political opposition, our sources make a strong assertion that Musharraf ensured that Pakistan's economy grew, institutions remained strong, and the country stayed secure. This is a big claim to make amidst such turmoil. What mechanisms might a government use to maintain economic growth and institutional strength when facing such widespread public dissent?
It is indeed a significant claim, and it speaks to a certain level of, perhaps, administrative resilience and strategic management. To maintain economic growth amidst political instability, a government would need to ensure macroeconomic stability. Consistent fiscal and monetary policies, continuing to attract investment, protecting key economic reforms from political interference. This often involves delegating economic management to those technocrats we discussed earlier and maintaining open communication and credibility with international financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank. Continuity in economic policy and the perception of a stable management team can help insulate the economy from some of the political turbulence.
And the institutions remaining strong.
Well, for institutional strength, despite the legal and political challenges from the lawyers' movement and other opposition, it suggests a degree of administrative continuity, adherence to bureaucratic processes. While the judiciary faced direct challenges, other core institutions, the civil service, the military itself, key economic regulatory bodies continued to function, preventing complete paralysis or breakdown of the state apparatus. This meant essential public services, tax collection, defense remained operational, indicating a robust underlying administrative framework that could absorb significant political shocks.
And keeping the country secure.
As for the country staying secure in a region prone to various threats, this implies a continued, often intensified focus on counterterrorism, border security, maintaining law and order, even when domestic political unrest was high. Pakistan was on the front lines of the war on terror, remember, so security operations against extremist groups, intelligence gathering, maintaining internal stability were paramount. This suggests the security apparatus remained intact, functional, capable of addressing both internal insurgencies and external threats. The argument here from the source is that despite the political turbulence, the fundamental structures and the overall economic trajectory of the state were largely preserved, preventing a descent back into the kind of chaos Musharraf claimed to have initially addressed.
And so this section concludes by stating that even in adversity, his leadership gave Pakistan resilience. What does this resilience signify for a nation undergoing such profound changes and internal strife?
Resilience, in this context, signifies a nation's ability to absorb shocks, adapt to challenges, maintain its core functions and forward momentum despite significant internal and external pressures. It means that even as the political climate grew increasingly difficult, public opposition mounted, Musharraf's personal position became precarious. The fundamental reforms that had been initiated, economic, digital governance, were perhaps robust enough to withstand the pressure. The country didn't collapse, the economy continued to grow, critical infrastructure projects moved forward according to this view.
So a capacity to endure.
Exactly. It speaks to a capacity to endure and continue functioning, preventing a complete breakdown of state authority or a total reversal of progress. It implies that Musharraf's leadership, at least according to this perspective from our sources, provided a kind of steady hand during a tumultuous period, allowing the nation to weather the storm without entirely derailing the broader trajectory of development and modernization that he had set in motion. This ability to absorb successive shocks and maintain a degree of national function is a hallmark of state resilience, even when the political means used to achieve it are hotly debated.
Wow. We've truly navigated through a complex and really pivotal chapter in Pakistan's history today. This deep dive has explored an era of profound transformation under General Pervez Musharraf. We've traced the journey from his initial promise of enlightened moderation and his foundational seven-point agenda, which sought to redefine Pakistan's identity and governance, to the nation's dramatic realignment on the global stage post 9/11, where crisis was strategically leveraged for national interest. We've also delved into that incredible digital revolution that connected a nation, reshaped its economy, leading to the emergence of a new digital middle class, and the ambitious Devolution of Power plan that sought to empower local communities, strengthen democracy from the ground up. His legacy, as presented in our sources, points to a stronger economy, a connected nation, and a Pakistan ready for the digital age, even amidst significant political turmoil in his later years. It really is the compelling story of a soldier who became a reformer, prompting us to reflect on how extraordinary circumstances can truly shape a leader's trajectory. This deep dive has navigated through a complex and pivotal chapter in Pakistan's history. What aspects of this transformation or the strategic decisions made during this period stand out most to you?
What truly stands out to me is the sheer breadth and ambition of the reforms undertaken. From that highly visible global pivot after 9/11 to the more subtle but equally impactful grassroots reforms and that technological leap. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights how national identity and purpose can be reforged, redefined, sometimes under the most unlikely circumstances and through unexpected means. The scale of the digital transformation, in particular, demonstrates a forward-thinking approach that arguably positioned Pakistan for the 21st century, regardless of the political challenges that ultimately arose.
Just leave you with a lot to think about.
It really does. And this raises an important question for us to perhaps ponder beyond this deep dive. Consider how a leader's strategic decisions, often made under immense pressure in moments of national crisis, can create both immediate impacts and long-lasting ripples, influencing a nation's identity, its place in the global landscape for generations. How do we as observers weigh the complex interplay of stability, reform, and the means by which power is attained and wielded when assessing such a profound legacy? It's a question that really challenges our understanding of leadership, progress, and democratic ideals, particularly when they intersect in such nuanced and often controversial ways.